Welcome to our web-based training series on malignant neoplasm coding for ICD-10. This is the fourth and last presentation in our comprehensive program for oncology ICD coding by the CDC Foundation CW team under the lead trainer, Y. Hamed. Our mission is to sharpen your skills in assigning correct ICD-10 diagnosis codes across diverse healthcare environments. We have built this training on the foundation of the 2016 ICD-10 guidelines, the 5th edition, tabular list, the instruction manual, and the alphabetical index to ensure you are working with the most up-to-date resources. We have structured this series into 4 PowerPoint sessions, each one building upon the last. This progressive approach guarantees a thorough grasp of malignant neoplasm coding intricacies. My name is Dr. Yusuf Hamed. I'm a mortality classification specialist and ICD consultant at the CDC Foundation. The presentations are based on rules and guidelines for neoplasm mortality coding, the ICD-10 2016 Volume 2 Instruction Manual, specifically on the sections, while examples and numbering are consistent with the 2016 Volume 2, with additional explanatory notes and examples have been added for clarity. The presentations incorporate information from Chapter 2 of Volume 1 Tabular List on Neoplasms, page 167, Volume 3 Alphabetical Index to Diseases, specifically for neoplasms entries starting from page 435. The current session, Session 4, focuses on coding metastatic cancer based on the 2016 Volume 2, Section 435G. After the presentation, there will be exercises to assess the effectiveness of the presentations and participants' comprehension of the relevant ICD-10 Volume 2 sections. This slide presents ICD-10 coding steps in a linear flow, indicating that the process moves from documenting the cause of death through coding using ICD-10 resources to selecting the underlying cause of death using specific guidelines. This process is crucial for standardized and accurate mortality coding using the ICD-10 system. The recorder refers to Volume 2 of the ICD-10 manual, focusing on page 28, Section 3.3, which outlines the basic coding guidelines. The coding process starts by entering the cause of death in an internationally WHO standardized to record the sequence of events or conditions leading to death. To ensure consistency and accuracy, the WHO provides detailed guidelines on how to complete this form. These instructions can be found in Volume 2 of the ICD-10 manual, specifically in Annex 7 on page 203. This step is crucial as it forms the foundation for all subsequent coding. The next step is to translate this medical information into standardized ICD-10 codes. This process involves using 2 main ICD-10 resources, that is, the alphabetical index and the tabular list. The final step is determining the underlying cause of death on multiple conditions listed on the death certificate. To address this, the ICD-10 system provides a set of selection rules and modification rules known as SP1 to SP8 and M1 to M4, respectively. Slide 5 presents 4 distinct sessions. Each section is designed to build upon the previous one, creating a logical progression from basic concepts to more complex scenarios in ICD cancer coding. Session 1 lays the foundation by introducing the fundamental aspects of neoplasm coding. Participants explored key concepts such as the behavior of neoplasm, their topographical location in the body, and the morphological characteristics that define them. This session also covered the crucial process of assigning multiple cause codes for malignant neoplasms, providing a solid base for the more intricate topic that follow. Session 2 dives into the specific guidelines for coding malignant neoplasms, of determining whether a neoplasm is primary or secondary. The third session tackled some of the most challenging aspects of neoplasm coding. It addressed scenarios involving multiple primary malignant neoplasms, situations where the site of neoplasm are not clearly indicated, instances where the primary site is unknown, and the complexities of coding overlapping sites. The program culminates in session 4, which is dedicated to the intricacies of metastatic cancer coding. This final session delves into the subtle but critical distinction between metastatic from and metastatic to classifications. Session 4 begins with a thorough recap of the material covered in session 1 to 3, ensuring that participants have a solid grasp of the fundamentals before moving to the more complex topics. This review encompasses a wide range of neoplasm coding scenarios, including multiple primary malignant neoplasms, ambiguous site indications, unknown primary sites, and overlapping sites. After reinforcing knowledge, the session transitions to its focus on the intricacies of metastatic cancer coding. Drawing from the 2016 Volume 2, Section 435G, this portion of the session explores coding cancer that has spread from its original site. By structuring the session in this way, that is, first reviewing the previous material and then introducing new specialized content, the course ensures that participants are well prepared to tackle the challenges of metastatic cancer coding, one of the most complex areas in medical coding. Slide 7 presents an introduction to a recap session covering the main points and important aspects of ICD-10 mortality coding guidelines for neoplasms discussed in session 1 to 3. Section 1 of the coding guidelines for neoplasms explored into the critical task of classifying tumor behavior. Coders were introduced to 4 main categories: malignant, in situ, benign, and unknown or uncertain behavior, as outlined in Volume 2, Section 435A. The session emphasized the importance of familiarity with these behavior types and their corresponding ICD-10 code ranges. First, the coders were instructed to examine the terminology used in the death certificate, paying special attention to terms that indicates both morphology and location. In such cases, priority was given to looking up the morphology term first. The alphabetical index served as a crucial reference point, either providing the specific ICD code or directing the coder to the relevant section of the neoplasm table. Coders were instructed to scrutinize additional information on the certificate for behavior-specific indicators. For instance, a neoplasm described as in situ or associated with metastasis or infiltration provided valuable clues for classification. The guidelines also stress the importance of identifying other signs that might suggest a primary malignant neoplasm, such as the presence of metastasis or secondary tumors. A key takeaway from this session was the emphasis on always beginning the coding process by consulting the alphabetical index. This step was crucial because certain morphologies had specific ICD codes that might differ from those listed in the neoplasm table when categorized by site and behavior. Session 2 focused on the classification of primary and secondary malignant neoplasms. The guidelines provided instructions for coding malignant neoplasms classifiable to the ranges shown. These neoplasms are to be coded as primary unless explicitly specified as secondary by the certifier. The session outlined several scenarios where malignant neoplasm should be coded primary. 1. When the malignant neoplasm is reported as primary. When the malignant neoplasm is describing using terms such as primary, primary in, originating in, or similar terminology. 3. When the malignant neoplasm is not described as primary by the certifier, but all other malignant neoplasms on the certificate are described as secondary or as metastasis. And 4, when a malignant neoplasm is not described as primary by the certifier, but all other malignant neoplasm on the certificates are described as secondary. The session also addressed situations involving common sites of metastasis. In these cases, the guidelines instructed coders to classify the malignant neoplasm as primary if the morphology indicated that it was the primary of the reported site, or it was described as caused by a known risk factor. Slide 10 outlines the criteria for coding malignant neoplasm as secondary, that is C77 to C79 in ICD-10 coding. Secondary coding applies when the certifier explicitly describes a neoplasm as secondary for malignant neoplasm of lymph nodes or when morphology is incompatible with the stated site. Neoplasms at common sites of metastasis sites are typically coded as secondary, except when there is only one malignant neoplasm present or when the certifier specified a primary site elsewhere. Unspecified neoplasm reported as due to a malignant neoplasm or those with morphology indicating they cannot be primary at the stated site are coded as secondary. When all sites are common metastasis locations, they are coded as secondary with an additional code, C809, for the unknown primary site. Session 3 addressed scenarios in medical coding involving multiple primary malignant neoplasms, unclear site indications, unknown primary sites, and overlapping sites. It provided guidance on when multiple primary malignant neoplasms could be reported on the same certificate, such as cases with different morphologies or involving site-specific morphology with a non-metastatic site. The session provided specific instructions for coders dealing with unclear site indication, recommending the use of the alphabetical index, appropriate category subdivisions, or coding to C76 for ill-defined sites when necessary. Additionally, it emphasized the critical importance of avoiding assumptions about the primary site based on other reported conditions when the site of a primary malignant neoplasm was not specified, underscoring the need for accurate and evidence-based coding practices. Session 3 also addressed complex scenarios in medical coding, including cases with multiple primary malignant neoplasms, unclear site indications, unknown primary sites, and overlapping sites. The session provided specific ICD-10 instructions on coding practices for unknown primary sites and overlapping sites, emphasizing the importance of accurate interpretation of death certificate information and proper use of coding subcategories. Session 4, covered in 2016 Volume 2, Section 435G, focuses on metastatic cancer coding. It outlines 5 specific scenarios involving malignant neoplasms, including those from metastatic from or 2 specified sites, metastasis between 2 sites, and metastatic neoplasm on or not on the list of common metastasis sites. This session provides ICD-10 instructions on how to code various presentations of metastatic cancer, enhancing the accuracy and consistency of cancer coding in medical records. Neoplasms described as metastatic are always malignant, but can be either primary or secondary in nature. The term metastatic is an adjective that can refer to either a secondary cancer that has spread from a primary site elsewhere in the body, or a primary cancer that has given rise to metastases in other locations. When a malignant neoplasm is described as metastatic from a specified site or a due to relationship indicates spread from a specific site. That site should be considered the primary site, even if it is on the list of common metastasis sites. For coding purposes, use the codes shown in the slide for the primary site. When a malignant neoplasm is described as metastatic to a specified site or a due to relationship implies spread to a specific site, that site should be considered secondary, regardless of whether it is on the list of common sites of metastasis. For coding, use C77 to C79 for the secondary site, and if a specific morphology of the code shown is reported, code the unspecified site subcategory of that morphological type as primary, while coding the site specified as metastatic to as secondary. When a malignant neoplasm is described as metastatic from site A to site B, it should be interpreted as primary site A and secondary site B. Use the codes shown for the primary site and C77 to C79 for the secondary site. Slide 18 describes how to code metastatic malignant neoplasms that are on the list of common sites of metastasis. Such metastases should be coded as secondary, that is C77 to C79, even if no other neoplasms is mentioned on the certificate. This applies to all sites except the lung, which has its own specific guidelines outlined in section 435G, subsection F of the manual. However, there are two important exceptions to this rule. First, if the neoplasm is reported as being due to a primary condition that increases the risk of a malignant neoplasm in that site or tissue, it should be coded as primary. Second, if the neoplasm in question is the only malignant neoplasm mentioned on the certificate, it should also be coded primary. This slide provides a list of 13 specific common sites of metastasis, which is crucial information for medical coding when you're choosing between codes for primary and secondary malignant neoplasm. The 13 listed sites include major organs, skeletal structures, lymphatic components, and body cavities. Slide 20 provides guidance on coding metastatic malignant neoplasm that are not on the list of common sites of metastasis. ICD-10 coding instructions state that if the only malignant neoplasm is specified as metastatic and not on the common sites list, it should be coded as primary. In cases with multiple neoplasms, those not specified as metastatic should be coded as primary, while those specified as metastatic should be coded as secondary. This example demonstrates the coding of multiple cancer diagnoses in ICD-10. The example shows how to code for excess with both bladder cancer and metastatic prostate cancer. The correct coding is to assign C798, that is secondary malignant neoplasm of other specified sites, for metastatic prostate cancer, and C679, that is malignant neoplasm of bladder unspecified, for the primary bladder cancer, regardless of the order in which they are listed on the diagnosis. This slide outlines how to properly code lung cancer when it is described as metastatic on a death certificate or medical record in 3 scenarios. First, when metastatic cancer of the lung is the only malignant neoplasm mentioned, it should be coded as primary lung cancer, that is C34 ... Second, if other neoplasm sites mentioned are all on the list of common metastatic sites, metastatic lung cancer should still be coded as primary lung cancer, that is C34 ... Third, on the other hand, if another malignant neoplasm is mentioned that is not on the common metastatic site list, then metastatic lung cancer should be coded as secondary lung cancer, that is C780. This slide provides an example of how to code a case where metastatic neoplasm lung is the only malignant neoplasm mentioned on the certificate. ICD coding instruction instructs that in such a scenario, despite the term metastatic, the condition should be coded as primary malignant neoplasm of lung, C34 ... not as a secondary site. If a death certificate reports a malignant neoplasm specified as metastatic of a morphological type classifiable to the codes shown, and the site reported is consistent with the morphological type, should be coded as a primary malignant neoplasm of the specified morphological type. If the metastatic cancer site is not consistent with the morphological type, it should be coded as a secondary malignant of the specified site, that is C77 to C79. Additionally, a code for a primary malignant neoplasm of unspecified site should be added for the stated morphological type. Slide 25 presents 2 examples of coding metastatic osteosarcoma in different scenarios. In example 38, osteosarcoma of the sacrum is coded as a primary cancer, C41-4, because the sacrum is consistent with the primary bone cancer site. Conversely, example 39 demonstrates that osteosarcoma of the kidney is coded as secondary malignant neoplasm, C790, and osteosarcoma of unspecified site, C41-9, as the kidney is not typical primary site for osteosarcoma. Slide 25 marks the conclusion of session 4, which is also the final session of ICD-10 coding for malignant neoplasms. The presenter bids farewell to all CWT participants, indicating that all sessions on this topic have come to an end. Thank you.